All right, guess what? It's story time. Somebody dropped off this 24-inch unicycle, and it reminded me of a story I have. So now it's story time. Story time with Eddie. Yay! Yeah! All right. So I got this phone call from a stunt coordinator that said, "Hey, do you ride unicycles?" And I used to. I learned how, but it's been a long time. So I said to him, I'm gonna have to call you back, you know. So I called a couple friends that I thought might have unicycles, and I called a couple bike shops that might have unicycles, and none of them had unicycles. So I called this last guy, and he says, "Yeah, I don't have mine anymore, but I can still ride one." So that told me I could probably still ride one. Anyhow, I call the stunt coordinator back up, and I said, "Yeah, I can ride one." So I got hired. The commercial was, I think it was 2012. It was America's Got Talent. It was with Howie Mandel, Howard Stern, Miss Osborne, and Nick Cannon. Anyhow, they're driving around this Cadillac or limo, and what's going to happen is that this car is a magnet. It's a talent magnet, and as it drives through these suburbs of towns, it magnetizes whatever talent people had, and they would stick to the car. So it was weird that they had some jugglers. As they were juggling, we had this apparatus that would, the stunt performer was connected by a cable, and as the car drove by, we would yank the crap out of them. So right as they were doing their juggling, they'd get launched back, and they would get launched back so hard, but it was higher than the car, and so it would look like they were getting ready to hit the car, but they never hit the car. So in production, they made it to where it looked like they hit the car. So anyhow, I got hired to ride the unicycle. Well, I got there early, and I tried to, tell them, "Hey, I'm gonna have to try the bike or the unicycle out," and I went behind, the studios, and I'm hanging onto the walls, and I can barely ride this thing. I can ride in a straight line, and that is it. Straight line. No turning, no nothing. And luckily enough, that's all they needed me to do, is ride this unicycle in a straight line. Now, this was also so far back that I hadn't had my hip done yet. My hip is really bad, and I needed a new hip. But I also needed the job to work and got paid. So every time I got on the unicycle, the hip was just excruciating pain, and getting on and off was kind of a pain in the butt. So anyhow, I had this vest on that was hooked up to the cable. So you can't see the vest, but it's hooked up to the cable. And as I ride, and I'm riding down the street, they would yank me off the unicycle and into the air, as when the car was driving by. Now, during rehearsal, all I had to do was be in one spot, and they would jerk me into the air, and we would land on these pads. So I would stand in one spot, and we had all these pads lined up, and and as they hit the button, I'd just get launched. So now on the day that we're filming, I had to ride into this. Now as I ride into this, and we have all the pads all laid out in a straight line. Well, I ride in, the cable is actually tugging on me a little bit, so I have to counteract that tug, and I'm leaning against the cable, and I'm riding. But as soon as I get to my spot, they hit the button, and I get launched. Well, I'm moving forward with a forward momentum, and they hit this button. Well, now I'm going forward, and the pads are staying still. So when they hit the button, I am no longer in a safety zone area because I'm traveling forward and I'm in the air and I'm 10, 20 feet in the air with nothing underneath me, no pads, no nothing, asphalt. So the guy on the button, instead of going, during rehearsal going up and then down, now he's up and he sees that I'm going to be in trouble. So he hits the button again and hits the button again and hits the button again until I land onto the pads. So it was a roller coaster ride all the way to the pads. So then the very next time we kind of curve the pads to where that's where I'm gonna land and I'll be safe everywhere I go. If something were to happen and the cable broke or the guy left didn't put his finger on the button, I would land in pads. Well, one of the rehearsals or one of the takes, the guy was kind of late with the button, and as I'm riding towards the spot, I'm trying to slow down so I don't overshoot the spot, and he's not paying attention, and I get to almost a dead stop and I start to fall off, and I'm not gonna put my feet down. So I almost hit the ground, and then he hits the button and I get whiplashed and literally the shoes fly off, the unicycle flies, I'm up in the air, no shoes on, no unicycle, no, and I'm flying towards camera, more or less. But that's one of the days that we shot for America's Got Talent, and I was on a unicycle. One day we'll re-drill this thing, put a new inner tube in it, and my hip's better, so I can ride it. We'll show you that later. But hey, subscribe, hit the button, notification, all that stuff. Be a member, be cool. We'll talk to you.
Wants to regain his title. Eddie Fiola.